So I'd like to jump right into the story of how a city gal like me ended up living in Durham, North Carolina. My husband came down here for his fellowship, and we were supposed to be here for only 3 years. Of course, we very quickly fell in love with the area, and we couldn't deny our family was thriving here. And I didn't see it coming. I actually like to tell the story because sometimes work, life, and love take us to places we did not anticipate. And little did I know, this was about to bring me to a totally new career. I got lucky. Duke gave me a platform to teach and mentor. And so I created a class that I wish I would have taken while I was in college. I teach a course here on hedge funds where we talk a lot about that world, but also the career advice I wish I'd had. Funny story. I actually ran into an old friend recently at a cocktail party, and she came up to me and she said, "Hey, I just wanted to tell you," she was very sweet, "I love it the way you reinvented yourself, and now you've got this new role at Duke, and I hear you're making this really fun TikTok." I thought to myself for a second and giggled, "Thank you, but I actually think you mean a TED Talk." So this is my list of career tips that I've curated over my 10 years here at Duke. I sensed that students were hungry not just to learn about the finance world, but also the soft skills that help me be successful at my job. They wanted to know what worked and what didn't. They wanted to know where I succeeded and where I'd failed. They wanted to know where I'd been and where they're headed. But look, this list of career tips, it's not just for anybody that's young and starting their career. There's a lot of universal lessons that can be gleaned from my talk. So I break down my words of wisdom into 3 categories: career tips, social etiquette at work, and work-life balance. Let's kick it off with career tips, and maybe I'll help you think about some of the things to avoid and challenges that I've faced and that my students have faced as well. Number 1, your boss is your number 1 client. Think about what your boss wants and deliver. It's actually easier than you would think. And if you're not sure what he or she wants, then just ask. This is the person that gets you paid and promoted, so I say, what are you waiting for? And when you start your job, most managers are quite keen to tell you exactly what success at their firm looks like. So don't wait until you receive your first disappointing bonus or a mediocre review to find out. Number 2, executive function matters. So now I'd like to talk to you about the power of executive function at work. For those of you who are not familiar with the term, this is the mental process that helps us plan, retain instructions, focus, and juggle multiple tasks successfully. You could be brilliant and full of hard work, but if you can't pull it all together, the big brain and the long hours just won't yield results. So be responsive. Answer emails, return phone calls. Your clients will notice it and they'll appreciate it. Keep a clean workspace. A disorganized desk is usually a leading indicator for a disorganized mind. Show up on time. This was a tough one for me. I was not a morning person in my 20s or my 30s, or maybe now, but I try. And I had to be on a trading desk at 7 a.m. every day for a morning meeting for 10 years. Oof, it was a struggle. And there were many moments when I showed up appearing quite frazzled. In fact, I fondly recall one in particular where I hustled out of my house and kissed my babies goodbye and forgot to take that moment to compose myself, and I showed up a little late for a client breakfast. About halfway through the breakfast, I glanced down at my shoulder, and I noticed I had a big white stream of baby spit up running down my black Prada blouse. Not very attractive, and I'm gonna guess not very appetizing for my client. Number 3, multitasking is powerful. So if you can master the executive function that I just described, this will set you up beautifully to be a great multitasker. Most of your colleagues will only be able to do 2 things at once, so imagine the multiplier effect if you can do 4 things at once. Now, multitasking can be intense, and it takes a lot of energy, but consider this. If you can be more efficient, you'll have more free time for yourself. It works. This was always, and actually still is, one of my superpowers. I can stuff 10 pounds of work into a 5-pound bag better than everyone. Yeah, you might be thinking, she's probably just wired for high executive function. But it can be learned, and I've worked hard at it. To be a great multitasker, you need a daily prioritized to-do list, and you learn to anticipate things before they're actually needed. If you can be focused and vigilant about this process, you will be more productive and your day will be shorter. Number 4, keep track of your accomplishments at work so that you have record of your value add at year end. Large and small companies love measurable data, so give them yours. For example, I worked on 10 client pitches, I did 13 presentations, I closed 7 deals. You get the idea. Number 5, getting paid, a topic many of us are fond of learning about. If you're being asked what you should be paid to keep you happy, make them suggest the number first. You'd be surprised how often their number is higher than yours, and you don't want to undersell yourself. Also, when it's an option, try to negotiate for more cash and less deferred payment. You would certainly rather be in control of your capital than have it in the hands of your employer. Wow, I wish somebody would have told me that one before I entered the workforce. Number 6, what am I really good at? Learn what skills come to you easiest and naturally, and gravitate towards those tasks. For example, it might be writing, it might be client-facing, selling, public speaking. This is your opportunity to shine where others might struggle. You're probably thinking, well, how do I figure that out? Pay attention to how you're received at work or in the classroom if you're still a student. What classes yielded the best grades? Was it challenging to be successful in that course? The point here is you want to uncover what you do really well that also comes to you easily. That's how we uncover our natural skill sets. And by the way, we all have different strengths and weaknesses. Realize yours. Now I'm going to talk to you a little bit about social etiquette at work. And this is some of the emotional intelligence, or some call it EQ stuff, that is less obvious, but still super important at work. Number 7, be polished and bring it. First, always be over-prepared for your meetings, and again, show up on time. Always dress for the job you want, not the one you have. You want to create the illusion where your colleagues can actually picture you running the team one day. Aesthetics do matter. Another pitfall to avoid: don't send personal emails from your work email. Most companies monitor your emails. It's not worth getting embarrassingly reprimanded, or worse, fired. Number 8, manage your colleagues carefully. I think this tip might be the one I would have benefited from the most. Try to manage up, down, and laterally very carefully. Don't disregard colleagues or disrespect them at any level, as ultimately, that becomes a poor reflection on you, not them. One way to honor and elevate your colleagues Err on the side of giving a colleague credit publicly, rather than taking credit. Acknowledge it takes a team to be successful. Then, when you're having a private meeting with your manager to discuss your being promoted, don't hold back. Realize that's the moment when you take credit. Also, be resilient. When your colleagues are trying to give you feedback about how you can do better, don't be defensive. You'll be better for it. Number 9, sloppy at work doesn't work. Okay, I'm not talking about your clothes here. If you're going to work for Goldman Sachs, it may be a good idea to take down those beer pong photos on your social media. You know the ones I'm talking about. Keep your LinkedIn account looking polished and updated. Clean up that Facebook and Instagram presence so that you don't look unprofessional. And while we're on the topic, if you go out entertaining clients, don't drink too much. You want to let loose? Great. Just do it with your friends. I am all in favor of having a good time, and I've had plenty good times on my own. In fact, when I told my family I was doing this talk, my husband looked at me and said, "Oh, really? So from deadhead to TEDhead?" Number 10, when an opportunity arises. If you're being given more responsibility at work, though it may seem overwhelming, try to say yes. Realize you're being given a seat at the big table, and sit down. Work really hard to execute well on your new responsibilities, and then have a frank discussion with your manager about delegating your old workload to a junior hire. This will help you avoid burnout while also facilitating some career advancement. Also, if you're trying to make your case for being promoted, try to stay away from the narrative of, "I'm ready to be paid more. I'm ready to be promoted. I've been working hard." And more towards, "I love working here. I believe in the mission of this company, and these are the opportunities that I see for our business going forward." Trust me, if your manager senses that your interests are aligned, you'll be more likely to get what you want. They want to know that you're working and worrying alongside them, and not just for your own benefit. Number 11, be aware of office politics. Now, don't be too political, but don't be unaware of politics at your firm. It's important to be savvy and informed. One way to do this is make sure to have someone in your corner. Everyone needs a rabbi. This is a really senior guy or gal that you are sure will have your back and understands your value add. Even better, have 2. Number 12, relationships are everything. Now, clearly this is one of the themes of my talk, right? And I'm deliberately overemphasizing this. Try to forge strong and deep relationships with your clients, and I mean this in the most appropriate way. This will allow you to gather valuable intelligence, and then senior folks will look to you when they need that information. Plus, it'll allow you to bring the relationship with you if you ever leave for another firm. So this brings us to our last section. Now I'm going to talk to you about work-life balance, but I'm not going to pretend that I'm the first person to talk about this topic. But I will say this. The timing of when you start a family is a really personal choice. For me, it was ideal to get as far along in my career as possible before I had kids. Once you have a family, it becomes really difficult to push ahead when you also want to be at home. There's just this whole new level of challenge when you have a family because you want to be a really great coworker and a really great parent and you just don't want to find yourself good at neither. So that brings us to a very common phone call that I often receive from recent grads. Number 13, I'm either too bored or I'm too busy. Look, we must all learn to get a little comfortable with boredom in our lives, but not a lot. It's important to feel like we are continually developing, personally and professionally. Look, it's why I'm here today, right? I wanted to take on a new challenge, get out of my comfort zone, do this talk. In contrast, jobs that are insanely busy can put you into an unhealthy lifestyle. So be careful to choose a job that has a sustainable pace for you. Know thyself. Working till 2 a.m. and lots of work travel, it can wear you down. Good segue to number 14. Take care of yourself. This one is easier said than done. And by the way, I was also terrible at this. I remember when I first went back to work, I was working 60-hour work weeks, and I wanted to give everything I had left to my family. I remember struggling to make time to get a haircut, and I made 0 time for exercise. Don't become one of those overworked types that doesn't make any time for exercise. Make the time to stay sane, healthy, and balanced. In fact, one of the perks of owning a dog is you get a guarantee of 2 20-minute walks every day. Go outside, breathe the fresh air, listen to the birds. You got this. And by the way, speaking of my dog, I can confidently say she is extremely sick of listening to this talk. Number 15, admit it when you need help. If there is a time in your life when you need a lawyer, an accountant, or a therapist, it is worth every penny to get the help you need. There is no shame in admitting it and paying for it. In fact, I have needed a lawyer 3 times in my life, and they have come through for me every time. Don't worry, nothing criminal, mostly like just traffic violations. So if your career is in its first chapter or its last, I'm really hoping that some of my points have resonated today. Your career is not a snapshot, it's a journey. And that path is not a linear path. There are many platforms and pitfalls that come along with life's twists and turns. At the end of the day, there is simply no substitute for being excellent at your job. Good luck, everyone. Thank you.